What's up, everybody? Welcome in to another edition of SSPN Offseason. I'm Jude, that's Ethan, and this is a little bit different of an episode of SSPN Offseason. Usually we'll jump into a bunch of different topics, but really today, all we're going to do is break down the Jazz Spurs Summer League game from last night, which me and Ethan were planning on doing a post game for, but once it got delayed about 30 minutes, it didn't start until 8 o'clock. That's kind of our rule. If a game's after 8 o'clock, that's a little bit too late for us on the work week. But Ethan, we did stay up and watch the game. And oh my goodness, dude, I was texting some other friends about this. Maybe there's some other games that are just escaping my memory, but off rip, watching that game, dude, that's the best Summer League game that I can remember watching.
For sure. The most entertaining. I guess there were a lot of mistakes and inefficient shooting, but definitely super competitive from start to finish with a good comeback in the third quarter and some clutch buckets on both sides.
Yeah, 100%. There's this picture that I forgot to upload, but I'm going to pull it up here in just a second. But it kind of encapsulates just the craziness of the game. It
Yeah.
talks about the runs. And man, it started off with a huge lead for Utah. Obviously, Kyle Filipowski had like 35 and 11. Okay, unfortunately, my image failed to upload according to Restream here. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it off. The Jazz started off, or they had a 14-0 run in the first quarter. The Spurs had a 10-0 run after that. The Jazz had a 21-5 run in response to that. Then the Spurs had a 17-0 run, and then to end the game, the Jazz went on a 10-0 run to take the lead before Dylan Harper was able to hit a layup there with just a couple seconds left, man. But kind of the theme with all of those runs, Ethan, is that it felt like, that the starting unit started off a little slow. I think they definitely picked it up late in the game, but it was David Jones Garcia, dude, just inevitably leading us into comebacks. What were your thoughts on what you kind of saw from him in the bench rotation?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the plus minus versus Utah, their bench was completely negative and our bench was completely positive. So this was definitely led by the bench unit and David Jones Garcia, who had 28 points, 6 boards, and 4 assists. Even he started off a little bit slow. Like he was kind of
Uh-huh.
forcing some tough shots, trying to get his offense going. But once he caught fire, he was definitely the catalyst that kept our offense going. And also, you need to give Harrison Ingram a lot of praise as well. 15 points, 14 boards, 6 assists. He wasn't doing anything flashy, but that first run, Jude, was really led by him more so than David because he was getting rebounds and pushing the pace full court and making some really good plays offensively, not necessarily to score, but to get some other guys some good looks and get their offense going. Yeah, but when push came to shove, it was David Jones Garcia once again, Jude, who was really the only one able to hit at a consistent rate at all three levels, which is kind of what we've become used to seeing from him in the summer league.
Yeah, definitely got a case for Summer League MVP. This was also crucial because starting out 3-0, that kind of puts you in a really good position for the tournament. I haven't dove into the nitty-gritty to see if that guarantees a spot for the Spurs, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty dang close to it. Now, if we did lose last night, go 2-1, and then you lose another game, it's 2-2. So this was a very crucial game for the Spurs. If we want to get those extra games and try to have a little run in the tournament. And obviously, Utah doesn't want to go winless. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this was probably the best shot that they've gave a team in the two games that they've played, or excuse me, in the three games that they've played in Vegas so far. And obviously, we know for a fact that Kyle Filipowski did, but not to just jump all over the place, Ethan, but we'll kind of go through the game overall with kind of the flow of it and whatnot. But what were your thoughts on that final possession in overtime where there's 1.9 seconds left? And because it's the Summer League, if they don't hit this shot, it goes to a sudden death period. I believe that's just who scores first at that point. What were your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on that possession? And then what were your thoughts when you saw Riley Minix hit a post up, fade away, contested, swish mid range jumper to win the game?
Yeah, I thought the play was going to be for Dylan Harper, which I think it was intentional and intended to be, but they blew it up. And then I saw Carter Bryant coming around off that screen. I thought it was going to be a lob to finish the game, but they didn't throw that. And then when Riley Minix got it in the block, Jude, I don't know what went through your head, but when he turned around and shot it, I was like, "That's game. That's game.
Oh, you knew.
That's this is what Riley Minix does. He's a bucket." and he's kind of the reincarnation of Larry Bird, just not quite as prolific, obviously. So when he let that shot go, yeah, I was pretty confident that it was cash, which it was.
I wasn't sure, but I knew with Riley there was a chance. And then when it just swished, especially,
Yes,
we didn't even talk about this. Like, this is the most invested I felt like I've been in a summer league
me
game,
too.
too. Like, not only was it, so back and forth and entertaining, but you got, at the end of regulation, you got Isaiah Collier kind of talking with people on the bench, Spurs players. I think he's got his brothers there, but he was talking with the fans. It was very chippy.
Hmm.
He gets a one-on-one with Carter Bryant in a fadeaway. And Carter Bryant's able to get the stop on him there. And then obviously Kyle Filipowski has a huge poster. I was scared they were going to call the and one
Me
there.
too.
Luckily for the Spurs, that didn't end up being the case. I mean, I guess if Riley Minix made it, it wouldn't have mattered even if it was an and one, but still, that was huge to keep the game tied. Kyle Filipowski's, saying this is my effing, what? You know what I mean? It was a
Hmm.
chippy game. And then we just come back with that play, like you said, the Riley Minix fadeaway, that it was contested. He's in motion. It's not an easy set shot. But here's the
Hmm.
thing. He is 6'8", 6'9", and definitely his length, kind of played a factor. And one thing that I thought was interesting, not to just dive into Riley Minix here, Ethan, but Mike Noyes, the head coach of the Spurs, he said in his opinion, or the head coach of the Summer Spurs, he said in his opinion that Riley was the best on-ball defender that he saw last night. And now I will say there were some times, where he gets out physicaled a little bit, out muscled, I would say. But there were a lot of times too where I would have rather had him on the big for a contest just because of his length. And that kind of goes back to, I believe, no, that was a poster on Carter Bryant, but in
Hmm.
regulation, didn't like late down the stretch, Kyle Filipowski have a layup to tie it on Harrison Ingram? You may not be.
I want to say yes, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I probably could. Here, let me see. Do we have the play-by-play here? Now we're getting real deep in the weeds. But let me scroll down here. Yeah, there we go. Kyle Filipowski at 9 seconds makes 1 foot 2-point shot. And that was kind of a turnaround shot or a little spin move that he did on
Right,
Harrison
right, right.
Ingram's. And so again, that all goes back to the length and stuff as much as, Harrison is, the stronger guy in comparison to Riley. There were a lot of times where Riley's length was showing up, shooting the ball offensively and defensively as well. The whole reason that I bring this up, Ethan, let me bring this up here as I bring up our roster. We've kind of had Riley Minix on the two-way contract listed as a 3. We've obviously, I think, said that he can play the 4. But I think when I'm watching him in Summer League now, because I wasn't as locked into Austin last year, I do think that maybe his full-time position, could end up being the 4 just because of him being 6'8". But, again, this all kind of goes back to the Carter Bryant, Harrison Ingram, or not Harrison Ingram, Harrison Barnes conversation. We're really there. He's just a forward. He can play both.
Yeah, I think he has the versatility to do both. I think in the last video we did, I insulted Riley's defense, and I have to admit, like this is even before I heard what the coach said. Like watching him, I was like, he's playing really solid defense. Like you're right, he's not perfect because physically he's not like some insane athlete, but he's technically sound. He gets over screens, he fights, he hustles. So I've been very impressed with what he was able to do in the last couple of games. The plus minus would say differently because I think he was minus 24, but I'm going to scratch that out as like just inefficiency. And then that first quarter where we got down by 18, probably playing into that as well. But yeah, he can play both positions for sure.
Yeah, had 6 boards last night as well as
Hmm.
3 stocks, a steal and 2 blocks for Riley Minix. So, hey, Ethan, I'm going to be real with you though too, man. I was ignorant as well of his defense. I was
Hmm.
just, there are a couple clips we saw last year. This guy's a sniper. He's a bucket getter. But I should have been more locked into Austin, Ethan, because
It
I
should have
guess
been.
if I was, we would have known about this Riley Minix defense. But again, just to kind of wrap this up, definitely open to him having a two-way spot. I know technically him and Harrison Ingram haven't accepted it, but a much more complete player than I thought. And I think, if he keeps working, he could end up being, one of those two-way diamond in the rough undrafted guys that ends up earning a roster spot. Now, that's not, will he ever get rotation minutes in the Victor Wembanyama era? That remains to be seen. But, him earning a third string forward spot down the line, I think could definitely be a possibility.
The future Matt Bonner question mark, Jude.
There we go. There we go. I like what I'm hearing, Ethan.
We've been due for one.
Oh man. We'll move on to the other two-way prospect with Harrison Ingram. You touched on him a little bit earlier, but again, this is not just only the best summer league game this year, but this is like one of the best Harrison Ingram games I've seen, period, summer league or G League. 15 points, 11 boards, or excuse me, 11 defensive boards, 14 boards in total with 6 assists as well. Only 3 turnovers, 3 for 6 from three, 4 for 9 overall. Perfect from the free throw line as
Hmm.
well. A lot of those threes late in the game, started off cold, but he got up to 50% by the end of the game by hitting 3 in a row. I believe it was across the third or fourth quarter. Regardless, it was some point in the second half. And that's when it was much needed as well. Again, kind of one of those David Jones Garcia counter runs where he was running some pick and pops with Harrison out there. I know you already touched on him a little bit, but what were your thoughts on what he contributed in this one?
I think he just finally played with aggressiveness, Jude. Like we've seen him get rebounds, we've seen him had decent defensive nights, but offensively he's been invisible prior to this game. And I think he had like you think it was either a fast break layup or a fast break assist where he was the
Yeah.
primary ball handler, and from that moment forward, he had his foot on the pedal at 110% energy, and that really just changed the trajectory for him in this game. Because at first I thought if we were in for another snooze fest from Harrison, but
Yeah.
he really did turn it around, and he was pivotal to that first run as well as in the second half.
Yeah, the rebounding is huge as well. As much as, kind of to talk some more position talk, Ethan, I kind of saw him playing a little bit more off the ball. Hence,
Hmm.
the 6 threes that he took and those threes that he took in pick and pops with David Jones Garcia. Now, obviously, still does do some pick and roll, is still important on the rebounding, being the team's leading rebounder. But I think we're trying to mold him a little bit more to kind of be in the same mold as Riley, where he can play the three as well, especially with him being 6'5".
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, that was what I saw last night. And, obviously, there's still a little bit of shades of PJ Tucker there, but I think we're trying to get him a little bit more even on the ball on the perimeter as well, which I am totally good with when it comes to his frame. And I like the point that you made about, when he was the ball handler in transition and hit a little bounce pass. I forget to who it was, but it led to a layup and the confidence just kind of took over from there. Kind of throughout summer league so far. If you look at some of the other box scores in this one, Dylan Harper and Carter especially, had a rough shooting night.
Mhm.
But it was but you can kind of see that there's a lot of other things around there that they're doing well. Now, I will say, maybe Harrison isn't doing, some of these things around shooting the ball or other than shooting the ball as well as Carter and Dylan are. But the point that I'm getting at is I think once the switch is flipped for Dylan and Carter, like once the ball starts dropping, once the execution finally starts hitting, I think it's going to be all good for them. And again, we've seen a couple games in a row now where it's been really poor shooting for Carter, but and you have 6 fouls as well. So like we'll acknowledge that, right? But that I just still see him all over the place on defense every possession and even on offense. Like he's never like clogging the lane. He's giving effort on the offensive boards. It just all comes down to execution. And I just think he's so raw right now that it's just going to take time for that to finally click. And then when it does, you'll kind of see a similar thing to like you mentioned with Harrison Ingram, with the game just kind of coming to him for the rest of the minutes.
For sure. I'm not worried at all. For Carter specifically, like his shot just isn't falling, but he's getting the looks that he wants. And defensively, he's still, exactly what was advertised. And for Dylan Harper, I mean, the dude's getting into the paint at will. Like 5 of 16, only 4 of those shots were from three. Like he is getting 2 feet in at the rim. He just missed a lot of bunnies off the rim. It kind of looks like he's got a lot of rust as far as finishing at the basket. But once he figures that part of it out, his offense is going to really explode off the screen.
Yeah, and the other thing, just to kind of play devil's advocate here for Dylan, first 2 games since March because
True.
Rutgers season ended early, and he did have a little bit of the minor groin thing as well. So, there's definitely a little bit of the rust that's got to be knocked off, as well as just being a rookie in
Mhm.
summer league. But again, it's like when I'm looking at Carter and Dylan, and I'm thinking about things to criticize, Ethan. Okay, maybe with Dylan, there's the 5 turnovers there, so you could talk about that. You know. Um, But again, it's really just the shooting when it comes to what I evaluate. Like, I think both of them, especially Dillon, you've got to see, I've seen a lot of his off-ball defense in his rotations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's giving effort. He knows where to go. He obviously has a high IQ. We've even seen him, try to space the floor a little bit more off the ball. The 1-3 that he did hit, was in the right corner there late in the game. That was a clutch 3 to tie it, I believe, or at least, make it a much closer score. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to just sit here and be like, I'm not worried about this, but it's 2 summer league games. The things, maybe I guess I'd like to see a little bit more playmaking from Dylan Harper in the games that he plays in summer league moving forward, if we see any more.
That's fair. I also think he was making a lot of good passes. Guys just weren't hitting shots. And he didn't play a lot next to David Jones Garcia either, who was the only guy that was really lacing it. It was David and Dexter who were both hitting threes, and they played together in the
Yeah.
backcourt off the bench, So if everyone else has a solid shooting night and we shoot better than 36%, maybe he has a few more assists on the box score.
No, that's a great point. I mean, Ibrahim Diallo didn't shoot a single 3. Riley Minix went 2 for 4, but I think one of those was an inbound from somebody else. 0 for 3 from Carter Bryant. And then those Harrison Ingram threes were mainly with David Jones Garcia late in the game. And then, like you said, the rest is Dexter Dennis, which I would like to say, Ethan, I know my boy Cam Carter, he's getting no run. All right. I was completely wrong about that one. But Dexter Dennis may have went to A&M, but from Baker, Louisiana, not too far from Donaldsonville, which is where Cam Carter is from. And what's he doing, Ethan? What's he doing? He's sniping.
Lacing it, absolutely.
So
he also was kind of an unsung hero in this game. Like all 10 of his points were very, very important points.
Plus 24 in the box score, had a quiet steal and a block as well as 4 boards there too.
On 1-3.
On a genuine serious note, because he's a younger guy. I mean, I don't think I don't know his exact age off the top of my head, but I want to say he's like 22 to 24, like somewhere in that range. Would not mind seeing him in Austin, not necessarily on a 2-way contract, but like just, signing him to the Austin Spurs.
100%. Let's do it.
Faux show, man. And when I look down and I see that David Duke Jr., David Jones Garcia, 28-point performance, had a steal in there, 6 boards, 4 assists. There's really not too much else to say with this guy, Ethan. I think the more I watch him play, the more I'm like, offer him our open roster spot for the 3rd string too.
Dude, let him be the new Jonathan Simmons, dude. The diamond in the rough that we discovered during Summer League that just kind of slowly plays himself into a rotational piece. Like, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be so cool, man. He's also another lefty. I know we got a lot of lefties on the team, but, that is kind of a different dynamic, especially when it comes to a primary ball handler. So I think that, like you said, if he keeps playing the way he's playing and we end up signing him, and he keeps progressing, maybe, like you said, one day he can maybe even earn rotation minutes.
Knock on wood, fingers crossed.
Knock on wood. A lot of work to go before that one, but man, this dude is absolutely killing it for us in Summer League. Any final thoughts? I think we kind of went through all of the main guys there, Ethan, but any final thoughts on this one?
No, dude, I'm really, really happy to see these guys compete because they could have given up early and they did not. And now we're 3-0, and we have a legitimate shot here, Jude. For the first time since in literally a decade, we have a legitimate shot at good Summer League content here.
Yes. No, exactly. That's what I was going to say. The extra games give us extra stuff to talk about in the dead period as well. So we're rooting for the Spurs as always, Ethan. But the last thing I'll say, I like that you touched on this. The other games that the Spurs have had so far, they've had some back and forth ones, but they've kind of been in control for the most part. So the fact that they went down big in this one and kept fighting, and there were so many twists and turns and ebbs and flows, definitely showed a lot of perseverance from these guys that are on Summer League who could potentially be on the main roster. But Ethan, that brings us to basically the end of this episode. We do have one more topic here as I get it set up in the background. But as we were talking about with David Jones Garcia, Ethan, I'll pull up the roster one more time. Regardless of how you want to slice up the lineups, the Spurs have 2 roster spots left, Ethan. And even if, Devin Vassell is in the starting lineup and Harrison Barnes is the starting 4 and Kelly Olynyk is the 3rd string 5, there's still going to be an open roster spot kind of in that guard position. And regardless of whether it's the power forward position or center, with however the lineups turn out, there's going to be a backup front court position available. So we'll kind of go over those. I think, like we've already talked about, would you say your preference right now is to just go with David Jones Garcia?
Absolutely.
Okay, I agree. He's just, I mean, dude, he's had basically 20 plus points every single game. But we will go ahead and just pull up some other shooting guards as well, just in the case that somebody else snags him, which would be very sad. I don't know if I can take not signing Dominic Barlow, losing Sandro Mamukelishvili,
Big deal.
and David Jones Garcia in the same summer. I don't know if I can do it, Ethan.
Yeah, it might be tough for you. I can see that.
Okay, I'm getting this all pulled up here. Alrighty, here we go. So thanks to our friends at SPO-Track here, this is not the absolute gospel of who's available and who's not, but for the most part, it is accurate. The only thing that I noticed is with the centers. There's one center that they have on there that the Oklahoma City Thunder signed to a 2-way contract, but Malik Beasley, obviously at the top of the list. That's kind of up in the air right now with everything going on with him, with the gambling stuff. Amir Coffey is another name that I've heard actually in the comments, and he's 6'7", kind of has some positional versatility. Alec Burks is another name down there. I texted you about Lonnie Walker. Brandon Boston Jr. has spent some time with the Spurs in the past. Landry Shamet as well. Mason Jones is another name. I know he's 27. Marjon Beauchamp. I know I'm just kind of reading off a lot of these names here, Ethan, but definitely some options, I would say, for the Spurs. Are there any that jump off the screen here for you in the event that David Jones Garcia gets signed by anybody else?
I mean, obviously Malik Beasley, but that's TBD at this time. So Amir Coffey and Alec Burks would be my first two choices outside of David Jones Garcia. I like Amir Coffey's size. I like his 3-and-D potential. He's still only 28 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And Alec Burks, a lot of the same things, but just a veteran presence. And he's not going to need a legitimate role. He's just there, to fill a roster spot and be a leader on the team.
Yeah, I completely agree with those two. The only thing I'll add for Amir Coffey is because he's 6'7", he kind of has that 2-4 versatility. So that's definitely a plus. And the other two names that I would say when I look at there is Alani Comeback. Wouldn't be mad at Alani Comeback at this point. And also Landry Shamet as well, just because, again, off-ball shooters there.
They'd both be cheap.
and we don't have a lot of minutes to give out.
That's true. They'd both be cheap. That's all I can say.
Alrighty, we'll go ahead and move to the center position here, Ethan. And here, I'll go ahead, put this all up here. So Brandon Carlson down there for the Oklahoma City Thunder, he did sign a contract with them, so you can take him off the list. But it's definitely becoming a short list here, Ethan, at center, if we want to go with some more front court depth. Now, again, maybe there is a world where Kelly Olynyk, is the backup 5, and we're looking more at a 4 here for the backcourt. But Al Horford, DeAndre Jordan, Alex Len, Thomas Bryant, and we got 2 other former Spurs on this list. That's how low the barrel's getting here, Ethan, with Bismack Biyombo and Charles Bassey. The only other name that really sticks out to me potentially is Christian Koloko.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at Christian Koloko. I think I'd prefer DeAndre Jordan in this list for a lot of the same reasons I said Alec Burks for his veteran leadership, but also he's a true center. He's not going to need a lot of minutes. We've seen what he was able to do for Denver in the last 2 years, despite his age. In moments where the Joker couldn't play, he still, is able to contribute at some level for short spurts. But there's a name that's not on here, Jude. I think he might be listed as a power forward, but he can play both. If we want to go versatility,
I know who you're going with.
Chris Boucher. I believe he's still available. Yep, there he is. And he might be a little pricey for kind of where he'd be slotted at kind of a combo 4-5, 5-4 third string guy. But if he were willing to take kind of a salary cut to play for us, I think he'd be a perfect fit for the team.
Yeah, and the other appeal with that is, again, the Wemby rest games. Whenever there's a Wemby rest game, that's an opportunity for more minutes for somebody like, a Chris Boucher. And like you said, if it is Kelly Olynyk as the third string 5, then Chris Boucher can also fit as the third string 4. So he's definitely still at the top of my list. We talked about him last time. You also talked about DeAndre Jordan last episode as well. I would definitely be down with that. Just to talk about the center names a little bit more. Thomas Bryant, Alex Len, Christian Coloco. There's really not too many big names out there right now, but just for third string depth, I wouldn't hate Bismack either.
That's true.
If we just really need to go back to that. And then when it comes to the 4s here, obviously, like we said, Chris Boucher, and Bol. I'll go with Bol. That's the other one I'll throw out.
I'll take James Johnson instead of Bol. I want an absolute psychopath on my bench next to Jeremy to teach him how to actually fight MMA. That'd be great.
There you go with James Johnson and JT Thor. That was another name as well. So those are the names that are still kind of floating around out there. I know that's not the biggest names or maybe the most exciting free agent content there, Ethan, but still, the Spurs got 2 more roster spots. We got to fill them at some point.
What about these 2 guys, relatively unknown, Jude McLaren and Ethan Quintero, to space the floor?
No guarantee there.
Yeah, I don't know if we'd slot in well in the front court, dude.
What's funny is this past New Year's, I played a basketball game with some friends. I may have mentioned this before. And I told them beforehand, I was like, I'm going to play exactly like Sohan. And then after the game, they were like, Jude said he's going to play exactly like Sohan. He wasn't lying.
A little bit of rough with his handling, just really solid defense.
Yeah, really physical, tough defense, rebounding, putbacks, 1 for 5 from 3. They're all going to be wide open, and one will finally go in. But, doing all the little things, doing all the dirty work nobody else wants to do.
I love it. The only way I could describe my game, Jude, is Boris if Boris was 5'6" and also somehow even slower. But that is how I play.
Oh Lord, you know how well, I mainly played football growing up. So if you ever played with some football players and they didn't know like all the skill, that's basically me. That's why I made the Sohan comp. But anyways, we appreciate y'all. Y'all give us your thoughts in the comments on who you would like to see the Spurs sign with these last 2 roster spots. And then, of course, give us your thoughts on Summer League as well and all that good stuff. We appreciate y'all. Don't forget to hit that like and that subscribe button below if you want to stay updated with the channel. Follow us on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And again, we appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all on Thursday. Go Spurs, go!